if you believe in superstition and you're not saved. So what those two things I'd like to say, the place right behind me is haunted with people who have passed. And you might not think that's real, but that's actually what superstition actually comes into fruition. And then lost on a different end on that note, we're actually going to take a look at one piece of like a history where, like, you know, there's a bunch of pieces of history, but like this piece is familiar, or is from, because it's no longer in contention, because once you're gone, you can't really say that able to be considered real. Object, I can't even find it, it's probably over here, is actually just the particles making up the half-life. And so when, yeah, I can't even find it, but I know it's here. There's like a name on, and that's what all the law is. It's just a whole bunch of memorandums that are based on legalities that are just academia at its bare minimum, or at its highest standpoint, depending on how well you buy into it. The bare minimum of the academia is knowing the nomenclature, and the judicial system has a really specific one where you're actually not able to understand any of it unless you know the nomenclature and have studied it for a long time. Kind of like what Jews do. The Jews, they go to synagogues and you have to learn for a really long time all of the teachings, excuse me, in order to even be part of them. And then if you're not, then you will get kicked out of the doors because they have bodyguards. Not really, but they might do that if they didn't really like you coming back. And then so the nomenclature and half-life, that's why inanimate objects are so dispersed, where if you don't know too much, you're dumb as a box of rocks. And in that point, you are an inanimate object, because you can be tried in the court of law for not having any withstanding. And if you don't have any withstanding, then you technically are dumb as a box of rocks, and you shouldn't deserve to get put down, but you are no different than an inanimate object, such as waiting to get put down. And so when you're waiting to get put down, that's literally what a box of rocks is doing. A box of rocks, if you drop it, if it's not at the bottom state, it's just waiting to go down into a lower state. And this is actually what electrons do. See, electrons are not animate objects, and they're always trying to get to a lower state. So their ground state is at the path of least resistance for an electron. And when it can't get to its bottom state, it goes in figures of 8, like a figure 8 in the skating rink. But its figure of 8 is in an 8 octane rule, 8 electron orbital rule, where it just tries to always get either to the ground state, or it tries to configure the 8 electron octate rule. Oct is octagon, but 8 in like Greek is oct. That's a different nomenclature. There's oct, there's pent. Pentagon means like 7. Excuse me. And hexagon, that's what witches do. Hexes are in 6s. The symbolization is a different nomenclature of a higher entity other than the judicial system. People say that there's such thing as superstition, and what that entails is evil. And what the evil of superstition means is that they don't need a nomenclature, they can do it all with symbols. And so what I was trying to show you earlier is something that isn't cursed, but it could be because it's an inanimate object, and I was actually bringing my attention to it. So the more that you bring attention to an inanimate object and you are not in the right path, you actually are not as dumb as a box of rocks. You're a ticking time bomb. The more that the system, hey, my sister said that the law has like a system, and it's like an entity where like the living law, but then there's differences where if I jumped in there and was grabbing quarters, did that once, then I would be breaking the law of the thing that isn't living, but it is in contention with me being able not to live if I were jailed and put to death for jumping in and collecting some quarters to go down the street to get a soda at the vending machine. Did that once, but then So that's like an eye for an eye, but not really, because the eye of the judicial system, you know, that's not actually living, but it would be taking me for doing that, and that would be a loss on my end. An excited element, it could mean a lot of things, but to me it means without contention. And that's kind of hard to understand because everything is always embattled. Hey, you know what particles handle? Radiation. And what leaves them off is half-lives. It's kind of like half of their life leaves, but it's not real, because particles and inanimate objects, if they're not onto a body, are, well, they're not living a life. I woke up and I was thinking of like a picture, and it was pixelated, and the pixelations were running off, and it was turning that at the center of it. That was the part that wasn't running off. And so that is actual evidence of a malfunction, which the picture was depicting within the person actually having a runoff, because the more that the runoff of the QR code left his image, then it wouldn't be able to have an actual QR code thing that actually went through, because it would all be. So I guess the opposite of non-existential is not nonchalant, it's supernatural. And so how many things are that? You have to make sure that that doesn't turn into that. The most nonchalant thing you can have is variables that are non-existential, and what that means is nonchalant. How many different places where you walk in and you will notice right away that there's a crowbar on your left? That's actually a weapon. And I was talking to someone on the phone, and it's no surprise that I had to double check that it was actually real, so I came back and there it is. Things that roll over tend to be mean-spirited. So if you have something and it's under it, if it's big enough, it can act like an Egyptian sled and actually roll the thing that's lighter over it, and it will actually capsize and fall on the ground. Other things that can roll over are stuff that are more sociable, such as bad deals and negative influences. When an unstoppable object means an immovable force, everything in between breaks in the middle, even if it's not electronic. That's the name of the game. How many more things can go smart, like your smart TV, your smart house, your smart dog? Not yet, but you just wait. This, and I'm not against it. In Mega Man, the dog was robotic and he was really cool. Dick Cheney, he had a heart replacement, so it wasn't a real heart, it was a mechanical one. And so it was like Iron Man, but minus the superpowers of an Iron Man suit. The, what would Stark be without the Iron Man suit and his just replacement heart? He's just a normal person, except without a heart, he has a light. Back to the main point, the name of the game is how many things that are electronic and would be smart, but aren't, and they're not telling you. Who's they? We'll get to that later. But that's the name of the game. How many of those things break when you're in between two lashes? The two lashes are not impeding traffic, like you can speed if the traffic is speeding, and that's what you have to do. And that's what all the Congress and lobbyists would say. This is what you have to do, and who's they? We'll get to that later. And then, no, FDI, don't look at this. DEA, I know nothing. The dark ones, the shadow priests. But back to that earlier. What's the second lash? The first lash is just being able to make shot calls because you're at top. And when you do caught in between those two lashes, shot calls at the very top and not impeding the flow of traffic, you know, breaking the rules just because everyone is. And you relate to the daily things like getting butter or having nice shoes, getting the right butter. So like if there's great butter out there and the farmers in like Kenosha or Fond du Lac, really like places where they aren't marketed, so no one knows about them, you can't go and get cream from them because, well, you just simply don't know any farmers nearby who could make some outstanding butter. So then you go to the grocery store and buy Land of Lakes at best, or just a store generic brand. And so that's one ease of access where it's just not there, so the root's cut and so you don't even have it. My shoes, I've been wearing $10 Walmart shoes, and then those are getting pretty cool because they have memory foam, but then I just found these other ones and I guess they're a little bit better, but they cost a little bit more, but they're on sale. And if stuff are on sale, you can throw out other things that you don't really care about, like $10 Walmart shoes that you wore a few times. And that's the art in that, and that actually is a double standard, which allows the flow of traffic to impede and you be a part of it. So now you're caught in the middle with your hand stuck in the cookie jar. Unless you're just throwing away $10 shoes from Walmart because you just found a deal that's better. And it's kind of like Avita, but this is like spelled with the A at the end. Avita sells like lotions and like hair stuff, but Better Hair Stuff is the Wen company in California, run by Chaz Dean. Shout out, homie. But the other guy was not in Avita. We don't know any of those people. So if I wanted to go to Avita and get that same deal, I would have to know someone in there. No, because their products suck, so I wouldn't want to. But with these shoes, you know, they're a step up from the $10 Walmart brand, and they're kind of like New Balance, but a bit better. That's despite the point. These are just peanuts to fat cats. The fat cats in like Washington making decisions where they would want everything to break in the middle. This is the name of the game that they can control with electronic waves. What type of electronic wave? Any wave is electronic if it's excited enough. So anything can break if it's mobile. That's the name of the game, and you don't want to get your hand caught in the cookie jar with someone coming with a giant wave of smart stuff. Here comes smart dust. Oh shoot.